Hello and welcome to Health and Wellness, your guide to the integrated personal and financial retirement journey for physicians. I'm your host, Michael Swartz, Certified Financial Planner and Master Certified Physician Development Coach. Welcome back to the Health and Wellness Podcast on episode 2 with Dr. Sarah Samaan. In the first episode, we talked a lot about how Sarah set the stage for her transition into retirement by doing both personal and financial planning very early on in her career and really protecting and preserving that and keeping it top of mind throughout her 30 plus years in practice. And so today, Sarah, we're going to be talking a little bit more about your retirement phase. And so phase 3 of that retirement journey, not setting the stage, not the day you retire, but your retirement and really what you found in retirement that's been so fulfilling and rewarding. And so you've talked about your passions with the arts, with photography, with equestrian. What about that is so exciting for you, and how did you rediscover that? And what really drove you to expressing that fully in retirement?
Yeah, so these are things that I think are maybe integral to me. And everybody's different. Everybody has their own set of passions and their own ideas that they want to follow and that are exciting. One thing that I did find really helpful early on in my journey, and I shared before that I worked with a coach before I retired, was identifying my own personal values. And that really helped tremendously to kind of make a cohesive structure in my mind of how things might look. Defining your own values is something that you might think is not a really important thing to do because we all feel like we know who we are and what our values are. But when you have to actually give name to those values and rank, perhaps the top 5 things that most resonate for you, it really gives you a way to understand yourself and perhaps to see yourself a little bit more objectively, and then think about how the ideas and the activities and the connections that you want to create align with those values. So I found that to be especially impactful.
Awesome. And, I have visited your website. I love the mindful physician coaching program that you developed. And right there, one of the pop-ups when you log in is getting the free values workbook. And so I've heard several physicians talk about this, especially as it guides their decisions outside of practice and outside of practicing medicine. What's so valuable about the values itself? Why are you offering this to people for free?
Yeah. Well, I think again, it was so impactful for me, but I think creating that insight about yourself, it can be hard sometimes, especially if you're not working with a coach, for somebody to reflect back to you who you are. And your family appreciates you, your friends, your patients, everyone appreciates you, but they don't always see the full person. So when you create your list of values, it's sort of a spotlight that tells you, who you are, what's meaningful, and then it helps to make sense of the things that matter to you. And also it might give you a way to look at the things you're doing that might not feel so fulfilling and to understand why those things don't resonate.
Yeah, I love that you create that clarity and dichotomy there of not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it, and then taking it one step further and who you're doing it with. And so I know one of the core tenets of your program, your coaching program, are focus, shift, balance, and fly. And it seems like you've really done that with your retirement journey. You focused in, and when you have these values to contrast some of these, you mentioned arcs or forks in the road for your retirement journey, you can make some really clearly defined decisions that resonate and provide a deep sense of personal validation and satisfaction. And so, in your coaching program, what have you seen as far as success goes with coaching clients when they really do focus in on their values, shift their behaviors, find that balance in life, and ultimately flourish and fly? What is that like?
It's really exciting and really sustaining to see this happen. So it often starts with focusing on what really matters, and a lot of people just have put these things off. They've kind of felt that, the things that are important to them aren't important to anybody else, not important to the world, not important to their practice. So, why bother to follow through on that? They've been working hard for everybody else, including their family, and not focusing on what really matters. So I created this concept of focus, shift, balance, and fly from my yoga practice. Let's say if you're trying to do an arm balance, which, those are not easy, and not all of us do arm balances, but just the concept, you focus, and you shift your body, or you shift yourself mindfully, to get yourself into balance. So that process of shifting and getting to that point where it feels kind of scary, but if you have the support, and you have the strength that you've built up, the balance that you've built up, then you can balance yourself. And once you're balanced, then you're flying. And so that was kind of the concept behind the way that I developed that program. But it's been really exciting to see people take these ideas. So, for example, I'll kind of give an example of a client of mine who was a very high achieving physician in a specialty that was very demanding, very time consuming, didn't leave him a lot of time to pursue other things. But he had always enjoyed skiing. And he was getting ready to retire, but he was really afraid of giving up this kind of sense of contribution, and being part of a community, and being able to offer his gifts to others. And he didn't want to just kind of go off into the sunset and not have anything to offer. And so we started exploring, what excited his 20-year-old self, and then we started talking about skiing. And at one time he had worked with the ski patrol, and that was something he really enjoyed, but he didn't have time for that. And now that he's got this wealth of experience as a physician, and this ability to kind of stay calm in the midst of chaos, and all of these other skills, working with people, helping people to kind of find a little peace, and to trust him. He realized that the ski patrol was still available to him, and he could actually contribute a great deal to this organization. He didn't need to make money, so he wasn't worried about, having to support himself in the ski patrol. But the skills and the gifts that he had were directly contributable to something like this, and that really excited him. And without coaching, I don't think that would have occurred to him, that it was still something available to him.
Well, what a powerful question to say. What excites your 20-year-old self? We've talked about this at length, and maybe at nausea, but I think it's always worth revisiting too. So many sacrifices are made throughout a career as a physician. And, the pace of healthcare has increased. As you mentioned, the charting has become more demanding. And, expectations have become higher because so many healthcare systems have really focused on the bottom line, not the line between patient and client, or excuse me, between physician and patient, so to speak. And so we start to lose our sense of self. And when I say we, I'm talking about physicians, but in general, physicians make a lot of sacrifices with the hope of serving others. And it sounds like, who's serving ourselves? And one of the questions that's come up a lot in these interviews is, when was the last time you asked yourself, what do you want? And for physicians, it may have been decades, right? Because physicians are raising families. Physicians are devoted to their career, becomes kind of this integrated piece of identity. And while it was a vocation in the past, as we approach retirement, it's the perfect time to revisit who we are, or who physicians are outside of their career. And so you're able to create the safe environment to say, let's look at it a little bit different. Let's get some perspective on ourselves. And let's figure out what that 20-year-old self was really excited about, because the alternative is burnout. I mean, we see so many people who are losing sense of what brings them their passion in life. And so to rekindle some of those old flames, those old passions, and say, nope, there's something there. Let's chase that. let's just go a little bit deeper. You take the financial out of it, and it's freedom. That's the flying piece. And so you're creating this bridge for folks to find exactly what they're looking for out of a life that they get to design for themselves in retirement. How powerful is that as the coach for you? How rewarding is that to have clients really go about this purpose and sense of self-discovery?
Yeah. And that is so exciting. And the other thing that I think people don't necessarily realize at first is when you pursue something that is important to you, you're often also offering those gifts to other people. And so I'll give one example, from my story. Now that I finished my bachelor's in fine arts and I'm in a master's degree program, I have kind of developed more connections. So that's been really exciting. And as part of a paper that I wrote for my undergraduate degree, um, I wrote about using the language of art criticism to help medical students and physicians connect with art and then take those ideas back to caring for patients. So I was really excited about this idea, and my professor put me in touch with somebody, with an artist who was working with medical students at a medical school in Arizona. Through another contact, actually, one of my coaching friends, I also got in touch with a physician who was involved in creating a program around what we call visual thinking strategies using art to help medical students and others in healthcare develop more empathy, more attention to detail, comfort with ambiguity, with things that we
Hmm.
don't understand or we can't quite figure out. And I became part of a course, and that's been really great. But through that, I actually connected to our local medical school. And so now I'm teaching that course at the medical school. So I never would have thought that my interest in art and this kind of what felt a little selfish, pursuit of a degree was actually going to be able to translate into an opportunity to help others and to help medical students connect more strongly with their patients and to help also ameliorate burnout.
Well, oof, there's a lot in that one story, Sarah, because it came from first you planting the seeds that you self-identified with. And that's so counter to how, the good physician shows up for their 9 to 5. And so you basically rewrite this story to say, nope, here's a passion project that I'm choosing to pursue. You called it out. It felt selfish because throughout the course of your career, showing up for others and serving others is the expectation. And yet, one of the biggest challenges of retirement is psychological and social losses. And these networks that you're creating, finding people and folks with a similar passion for solving these issues with creative solutions and really applying your passion with your experience in healthcare and then combining it with the coaching designations. I mean, this sounds like a snowball of excitement and fun and success, and really to be a part of something bigger than yourself. What was that like for you in retirement?
Yeah, it's been such a gift. And I think that the big story for other people, because we all have, different ideas and things that we want to pursue, is there's so much more to the work that you've done than you realize. You've got so many more skills and so many more ways to connect with people than you may understand. And as a physician, we are really uniquely positioned. We've had the experience of working with so many different kinds of people. And if you can take those skills and those gifts and realize that there's so many other ways to apply those. You don't necessarily have to start with a plan, but just be open to possibilities. Stay open to what's out there and say yes when something sounds interesting.
Well, as coaches, let's call it what it is too. That can be very intimidating. You mentioned it felt selfish. I'm sure some people will just say it's downright intimidating. We've physicians have spent 30 to 40 years in a very specific environment. And so to get out of that environment and to really try and go through the rebirth, that hatchling to fledgling to flying out of the nest stage, it's being the new kid on the block again. It's a little bit of starting over. And so, as we mentioned several times, your mindfulphysiciancoaching.com, the whole presence that you've got, this coaching that you're allowing yourself to do has been extremely rewarding. But what advice, again, would you give to folks who are approaching retirement but unsure or downright intimidated by spreading your wings, being vulnerable?
Yeah, it is very intimidating sometimes because you are going to be the new person. You aren't going to know everything. I mean, in my master's degree program, I feel like such a fledgling, I really do. I'm like, yeah, I just feel really lucky that I get to be with these people that are so amazing. But I think that's the important thing is that you have to kind of allow yourself to have that beginner's mind and to be trainable, to know that you've got these gifts and that these experiences that you've had will be applicable in so many ways, but also just allow yourself to not know anything, allow yourself to be taught and just go back to that student mentality, the beginner's mind, and realize that other people have so much to teach you, and that's really part of the joy of it.
And you touched on this too in the questionnaire and really wanted to talk about this too. You have give yourself grace to those closest, especially yourself. Failing fast isn't failing. Celebration isn't selfish, and let your right brain in. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So failing, there's nothing wrong with failing, especially when you're not taking care of patients. Nobody's going to die. That's the great thing.
Yeah.
If you fail, you just get up and what did you learn from that? I think that's a really important thing that you learned something from that failure. And maybe it didn't work out, but that doesn't mean that it was a waste. There's a lot of rich learning that you'll get from every endeavor. And also don't think of it as a failure. Think of all the things that you try as experiments. And that's something, I like to kind of encourage people to do is, make little experiments, whether you're retiring or whether you're just thinking about changing from one professional position to another or whatever it is, if you're thinking about pursuing a hobby, but you're not sure, just take these little experiments. You don't have to take a huge leap, but just allow yourself that time and that grace. And then again, let that right brain take over. One thing I really encourage people to do is write, journal, whether it's in the morning or at night. That was something that helped me a lot when I was trying to figure out my retirement was just writing every evening, even if it was just a set of goals, a very specific set of goals, but just writing or, what interests me, what are my values, what are these values mean? Just choose something and start writing, and it's going to open up more ideas for you.
Well, and that's what a great invitation into coaching right there is it might feel awkward. It might feel uncomfortable, but we talk about this a lot. Some of the best folks in the world, whether it be Tom Brady, Steph Curry, I mean, they've got athletes, right? But even let's talk Tate Shanafelt talks about the power of coaching and wellness. And you can imagine as physicians too, some of the best, most successful people in life are folks that rely on other coaches to help them develop their skills, whether that be a nutrition coach, physical coach, psychologist, right? There's these people that kind of create this environment to help you grow and help you prune. And so you find all these experiments. And while you were talking too, I was thinking about Dr. Riley Moynihan, who did a TED Talk on the 4 stages of retirement. And so most people know about that honeymoon phase, right? You get to retirement, you got all the stuff you're retiring from. And finally, you take the pack off, you're free, and you're in retirement. But maybe what most folks don't realize or hasn't been forecasted as well is that failing, that psychological and social losses that set in, kind of bring us actually back down. And they call it the valley of despair. He calls it the sense of feeling lost and loss, or sorry, loss and lost. And then you go back into this kind of regeneration phase of confidence. And that's where that exploration, that curiosity, that permission to take action that you talked about in our first conversation, to get back up to this second stage, which is called the reward. And so it's not a vacation phase. It's not this kind of free ride into retirement because reality does set in. And you really have to be intentional about planning what you're curious about, planning what you're doing that exploration of as you climb back up to rebuilding not just a living, but a life, as you mentioned. And so what is it about coaching that really draws us into that introspection and reclamation of agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a coach reflects back to you your strengths, and also gives you permission to explore and to play. But a coach
To
also,
play,
yes, to play, play with these ideas. Like what are the possibilities? Let's just talk about if nothing else is in the way, what would you do? Or how would you do it? And then how could we take some of that and strategize to kind of get to that nugget of wisdom, or that nugget of belief, or what can we use from this conversation to create a set of very small steps and goals that will get you towards what feels meaningful. And then each step is something new. And maybe this step, you kind of realize, well, I don't really want to go that direction, but I learned this and now I want to go that direction. It's that permission, but it's also the reflecting back to you, and the space and the opportunity to focus only on yourself and nobody else.
yeah, and I think of anyone, climbing a mountain, going on a journey off into the unknown. First, just the power of having a sage along with you who can tell you, nope, we're safe and you're going to lead the path, but we're not going to take you down a path that leads you to the dire straits or to a cliff, right? And if we are heading that direction, maybe there's a reframe, a redirect, but reflecting back to you saying, you made this decision, did it work or not? Why not? And really, it's this generative loop of positive feedback and then positive experiences where we find that confidence to take the next step forward. And all of a sudden, the path starts to open up. It becomes more beautiful. We have more freedom to enjoy what we're experiencing now and get excited for what's next. And so, for coaches to be able to do that, especially on this really daunting transition out of medical practice for physicians, I mean, how valuable is that? And in your own experience, thriving in retirement, what is that feeling like to truly fly and be free, not just in the fledgling stage, but to really find these passion projects that you're working on, Sarah?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, I feel like there's so much opportunity. I'm going through, again, I mentioned the master's degree program. That's opening up all kinds of opportunities, more communities that I'm part of. But that's not kind of the end. Like I don't see an ending. It's creating this richness in life. And again, I don't know where it's going. And I think as physicians, we kind of know where we're going. When you're in medical practice, every day is going to be like this. And maybe I want to, develop this program, or maybe I want to be chairman of this, but it's all defined. And so when it's completely up to you, it can be a bit daunting, but it's also very exciting because again, you realize that there are so many things that you have developed about yourself and connections that you've made. And now you finally have the time to start really sculpting that into something that's meaningful.
So I think, we're coming up on the close of the conversation, and from what I heard from you, it's tremendously exciting. It takes kind of the unknowns and either turns them into knowns, or we don't have to worry about that right now, and really focus on that generative passion projects to have something to retire to. And when you do that, it's freeing, it's empowering, it's reclaiming that agency, and as you put it so eloquently, really molding and creating the framework for that life that you step into in retirement. And I see so many physicians who either aren't aware or aren't confident taking that first step. So whether it's with you and that mindful physician coaching practice, if someone would like to talk to you, to do some of this retirement coaching because you're someone who's been there and been through that transition, maybe tell us a little bit about the best way to get in touch with you and what the benefits are of coaching one last time.
Yeah. So I would love to hear from anybody that wants to reach out. You can reach me at mindfulphysiciancoaching.com. When you go to the website, there is a free values workbook that you can download, and no obligation. You just put in your email. You don't even have to put your name in, and it'll go straight to your inbox. If you're interested in coaching, I have a schedule where you can schedule a 30-minute consultation with me with absolutely no obligation, no charge. You don't have to enter any payment information. You just schedule your appointment, and I'd love to meet with you and just discuss what we do. And the power of coaching is it expands your possibilities. It's completely focused on you. And discovering what your possibilities are and then creating a plan and steps to get you to the next place, to a place of meaning, a place of purpose. That's what inspires me to coach and what really brings me so much joy.
Yeah, and I will say too, if you subscribe, even just sign up for the values workbook and subscribe to the newsletter. Sarah, I've been a subscriber for about 6 months now, and I love the content that you're putting out. It gives us a little bit of permission to play with that on our side of the fence, to start really contemplating these concepts that you're introducing. And once we start playing around with it and taking some steps in private, it might be a little bit like doing a workout video at home before you go to the gym, right? And start taking those first few steps, going, okay, this is something that calls to me and is going to benefit my retirement journey, and just start playing with these ideas, taking the small steps, and then moving forward with scheduling a meeting. We have a whole list of coaches also at healthandwellness.com who are accredited and focused specifically on the retirement transition. And so, Sarah, for you and everything you're doing for physicians and coaching from practice all the way up to the retirement transition, thank you. Because when I started looking into this problem, most physicians weren't even aware of it. Coaching is something that's really developing this momentum now. And I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there's a statistic out there that over 40% of physicians will be over age 65 by 2030. And so there needs to be resources to help these physicians transition successfully into retirement. And it sounds like you're here raising your hand saying if there's anyone out there who's looking to meet someone who's been there, done it, and done it successfully and phenomenally well, let's take a look at your journey and figure out how we can start taking those first few steps too.
Absolutely. This has been such a pleasure, and I would love to have a chance to meet with anybody who'd like to discuss the ways that you can create a retirement that really is meaningful and sustaining for you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate you being on the Health and Wellness podcast. And again, thank you for your time. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I'm sure all the listeners have really taken a few nuggets out of these conversations.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. It's really been a pleasure.
All right. Take care. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Health and Wellness Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Michael Swartz, Certified Financial Planner and Master Certified Physician Development Coach. If you're looking for additional resources for integrated physician retirement planning, please visit healthandwellness.com. We'll see you in the next episode.